Hello, and welcome to Your Yes Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, and this podcast is for high-performing, empathic women who are ready to stop second-guessing themselves and start trusting what they know. Maybe you're successful in your career or business. People rely on you. You make difficult decisions every day, and yet sometimes the moment someone else's emotions, expectations, or opinions enter the conversation, your own clarity starts to disappear. If you've ever wondered, how can I be so confident everywhere else in my life but struggle to trust myself when it comes to my own needs, you are in the right place. Each week, we'll explore self-trust, nervous system regulation, emotional energy, boundaries, intuition, and the everyday moments where your life changes, not because you've become someone new, but because you learn to stay connected to yourself. I'll share client stories, my own experiences, practical tools, and honest conversations to help you stop abandoning yourself and start creating a life that's truly your own. Because I believe you already know more than you trust, and that is a yes-filled life. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome to Your Yes Filled Life. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. So today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about communication. Specifically, we're going to be talking about something that Devon Bruce calls communication debt. It's where one conversation at a time becomes a pattern, and over time it creates misunderstandings and can escalate conflict and really interfere with our clean communication. And this is so important for everyone, especially empaths, because the more clear we are in our communication, the more we can accurately express our needs. And as empaths, this is something that most of us really work to do because for so many years of our lives, we have put other people's needs in front of our own. So Devon has a beautiful way of describing this, explaining it, and helping us understand how to get ourselves out of communication debt. And this is going to be applicable to you no matter what field you're in, whether you are in a healthcare space, an education space, an artistic space, a stay-at-home mom space. It is going to be applicable to you, I promise. But Devon specifically works with healthcare organizations. And I know that we have a lot of people in healthcare spaces who listen to the podcast because healthcare, by its very nature, attracts a ton of empaths. And so if you are in a healthcare space, go make sure that you check out the links in the show notes so that you can connect with Devon and bring her into your organization. Let's dive into this conversation with Devon Bruce. Hi, Devon. Welcome to Your Yes Filled Life.
Hi, Brenda. Thank you so much for having me.
I am glad you're here because we're going to talk about communication and we're going to talk about the things that might impact communication. And before we hit record, we were just talking about the things that can get in the way of our ability to process communication. And
Yeah.
you work in healthcare spaces, and everybody needs healthcare. So whether the listener is a healthcare provider or a
Mhm.
healthcare consumer, this conversation is going to be really good. Would you mind listening or
Very
just
excited.
telling us a little bit about the work that you do? And we'll kick it off there because that's going to be the beginning point of our juicy conversation.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to be here and I'm very excited to talk about this. So, what my team and I do, we help healthcare executives with their communication breakdowns across their teams before they become too much of an operational risk or too much of a safety risk. Because communication is not a soft skill in healthcare, it's infrastructure. So, if the communication is not there, it can cause a lot of problems down the road that often start very small, very invisible, and a lot of things that, in a lot of ways, that people adapt to. So we
Mm,
help them identify where those communication breakdowns are causing big problems. And I actually call it communication debt because the communication debt is those small, individual, quiet, sometimes invisible breakdowns that just happen over time. And then you look up and then you realize you have this huge problem and you don't really know how it got to this point. And that debt always gets paid with interest.
Just like debt does, right? So
Yes.
I'm wondering, how would someone know that they have a communication breakdown? What would the symptoms be?
That's a really good question. Especially in healthcare, it really depends on the situation. But a good example would be, let's say that there's a deadline coming up and there's a few people on an email, and someone sends an email to someone, but there's like a group of them, and they're like, hey, when are you going to submit your information? And the person responds and says, I'll send that to you ASAP. Now, ASAP to the person who sent the email could mean lunchtime tomorrow. Another person on that email could mean the end of business today. The another person, it could be end of business in 2 days. The person who sent the email could be by Friday, a couple of days from now. Now, everybody knows what ASAP means, but everybody has different interpretations of what that is. And so you have people, that Judge Judy meme when she's doing this, you've
Hmm.
got people going like, what's going on here? And then the person who sent it's like, what's the problem? I said I'd do it ASAP. That's communication debt because there's no clear definition on what the time is. Now, if the person who replied was simply just said, I'll have it by end of business Friday, everybody's crystal clear on what is expected.
What an easy solution.
Exactly. But the thing is, we use ASAP all the time, right? It's such a part of our normal everyday usage, but it can cause so many problems.
That's right. And so I was thinking about the conversation that we had on your podcast, and we talked about different words and different phrases meaning different things across cultures. And
Hmm.
I'm a big Broadway nerd. And I have come across this Broadway singer named Kelsey Watts, who's married to a neurophysiologist from South Africa. And he did this
Hmm.
reel recently about the ways in which communication can break down, even among standard English, with two English
Yeah.
speaking people that have different contexts of where they learned English. And so even
Yeah, I can see that.
even speaking the same language, and this is what your point is, even speaking the same language, we can have communication breakdowns if we don't define things.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
So if someone wanted to clean up their communication, it seems like it'd
Hmm.
be a really easy thing to do to just be more specific. But I'm betting you have other
That's one
things up
way.
your sleeves.
Yes, I do. And again, it really depends on the context, but just to keep it simple, one of the fastest, easiest, most effective ways is just to be clear, especially when it comes to deadlines and timelines. So instead of saying, I'll get to it soon, make sure that you say, I'll get to it by, and then have a specific time and date if possible. If you don't have a specific time or date, then you can say, I will let you know as soon as I get informed by this person, or once this happens, I'll let you know. But if you just say, I'll let you know soon, that's very unclear. So anyway, being very clear when it comes to time frames, that's the easiest one. Another way to have better communication is to make sure that you watch your tone, because sometimes people are not really paying attention to the way that they say things. Because in English, you can say the same sentence five different ways and it can have five different meanings. And you don't have the luxury of knowing how that other person is going to interpret what you're saying based off of your tone. So another way, this is a little bit harder because this is more nuanced, but if you really pay attention to your tone and how you say things, that can also really help with communicating effectively.
I love
And I would
this.
say, oh,
And
go
and I
ahead.
have
Yeah.
a question. Could we do some examples of sentences
Yeah.
that have different meanings based on tone? Because for the listener that might be thinking, how can I apply this to my personal life? Or how can I
Okay.
apply this to my business? I can see that there's a lot of different potential examples. And
Oh, yeah.
could we play? Like
Yes, of
like
course.
let's do a phrase that we might be able to interpret five different ways. Do you have one in mind?
Okay. Um, for this one, I can do, because I know that we're trying to do like personal and professional. We'll do four. So the sentence, I didn't mean that.
Ooh, okay, that's a good one.
Yeah. So you can interpret this so many different ways. So let's say if you come to me and you're just like, Devon, I didn't really appreciate the way that you said something.
Hmm.
And I say, oh, Brenda, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. That
Ooh,
sounds,
yeah, that
nice.
feels
You can
good.
tell, yes, you can tell that I was being sincere. But if you say the same thing and I'm like, I didn't mean that.
Ooh, I feel
Totally,
defensiveness.
yes, totally different. But in your mind, you might think that you're coming across like you're communicating effectively, and you might not be fully aware of how defensive you're coming across, but the other person absolutely receives it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay,
And
those are
then you
two
can
good ones.
also, yeah, and then also depending on where you put the stress as well. Like, I didn't mean that, meaning, another person could, or
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean that, meaning you could be referring to something else. So you see how that one sentence, depending on how you use your voice to communicate that, it can cause so many communication breakdowns.
So if we wanted to make our tone more approachable, more neutral, what do we
Hmm.
do?
There's a few things that you can do. Sometimes when I know if I'm in a heated situation, but I don't want to shrink myself, I just say it very calmly, but confidently. Like, oh, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. Something like that. You know what I mean? Like I say it confidently, but more reserved.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what works for me. This is really dependent on the person's voice and what works for them. Because for something like this, it's really applicable to the person and how they operate.
That makes so much sense because we don't, I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many varieties. Okay, so as you were
Right.
talking about the five different ways that somebody could say something, you were getting ready to move into a new space, and I interrupted you to ask for examples. Do you remember what that space you were headed into was?
Let me see. Do I remember? Actually, no, I don't. It'll probably come to me when we stop recording.
Okay, so I was in public education for 26 years before doing what I now do. And one of the things that I saw in a breakdown was if somebody felt unseen, unappreciated,
Oh yeah.
unheard, that a lot of times they would begin to, and this is very human, they would look for evidence that they were unseen, unheard, unappreciated. And of course, if
Oh
we're
yeah.
looking for that, we find it.
Hmm.
And I can imagine that that comes up a lot in different kinds of healthcare spaces.
Yes,
How would one
for sure.
approach that and begin to heal or mitigate those kinds of feelings?
That's a really good question because something that I say all the time is that silence is one of the biggest risks in healthcare. And if people don't feel seen, supported, or heard, then they will not speak up. And that can have dire consequences depending on the context. So, to answer your question, what can someone do if they feel unseen? There's a few things that someone can do. One is to soothe themselves, let them know that even though they may not feel seen, that's not something that's dealing with their own self-worth. Like they're not bad, they're not wrong, they're not, a failure. It just could be the situation that you're in. So if you can find a way to separate the two, that's really helpful. another thing that you can do if you feel comfortable is speaking to the person or the people that you can and just go in with an open mind. Now, I know that depending on the context, that may not work. So that's why, depending on the context, if you focus more on yourself and realizing that you are doing the best you can with the tools you have and that you are a good person, you're a kind person, then that will help your self-esteem. And then once your self-esteem is risen, then you can take the action that you feel is best for you.
I love that you linked the ability to say that with self-esteem. And I do think that there is absolutely a relationship between how somebody perceives themselves and their ability to speak up for themselves. And I also would say it if you're regulated, if your nervous system is regulated, it
Yes,
becomes so much easier to have those conversations because if you're
absolutely.
dysregulated, then it it feels like there's a
Right.
fire in your face.
Absolutely. That's another thing that I say a lot too in my content is that communication issues, they're a lot of the times it's a nervous system issue. So if you are in the middle of a presentation and your mind suddenly goes blank because you're very nervous, that a lot of that is not because of your lack of being able to communicate. It could be because you're feeling unsafe. You're feeling like you might be feeling spikes of unworthiness. And so your nervous system is going haywire. But if you focus on regulating your nervous system, that can really help clear up some communication issues.
Absolutely. I'm seeing something that's I haven't seen in the physical world before, but it is something that's coming through about you. There's some slideshow that you present and it is connected to one of your presentations. And my guides, to be a little bit weird here, my guides are like, you need
Oh
to
no, you're
ask her
fine.
about that presentation because there's some piece of gold that is in one of your presentations that you have a slideshow ready to go on.
Oh. I'm thinking because I've done quite a few, especially in the last couple of months, and the spectrum is so wide. Because
Okay,
even though my jam is like healthcare and things like that, but I also do quite a bit of work now in like women's spaces. So leadership development, money, mindset things, how to redefine yourself. So I've done other things outside of healthcare
okay, it's
recently.
it's one of those, and it was about 3 weeks ago. They're telling me.
3 weeks ago. What is this? June 9th? I
June
gotta
9th. So it'd have
check.
been like the end of May-ish. Give her,
Okay.
yeah. And it,
Okay. Yes, I did do a presentation on May 26th.
that
I
one,
did.
that one.
Okay. Oh, what was it? I gotta check. I'm so sorry. I have to pull up
Well,
because I
no,
don't really.
I'm totally throwing this at you because we didn't talk about this. This is something my guide
Yeah, let
they're
me.
being loud about.
Oh. Well, I hope I'm passing the vibe check.
You're totally passing the vibe check.
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear that. Hold on, I gotta pull up my phone because I have to see what it was about because again I don't really remember. What did I talk about? I talked about okay, so my topic was the hidden cost of building your business in the wrong direction.
Okay, so I just got the chill bumps of
Yeah.
confirmation. That's the one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, this was a fun one to discuss. I had to really talk about the way that I spoke about it is that I really talked about my business ups and downs and how I was able to get in full alignment with my business and how basically me being a cautionary tale and like don't do what I do or not what I do now, but
Yeah.
I tried to save people years of just pain and struggle with their businesses by using myself as a cautionary tale.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good. I definitely felt like that too in my own business, where there was a time period I went off kilter of what I know and started to try to follow a path that someone else had laid out for me because they told me
Yeah,
that was going to work better for me. And it almost cost me my business because I
same.
wasn't listening to myself.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
And that was a really hard time because I was back when this was a real issue. I was trying so hard to prove people wrong because I had a lot of people tell me that I was like a failure and I wasn't going to do it. And for your listeners and the people watching, I'm a single mom, two kids, and when I left a marriage that I had to leave, I had to leave very quickly and without a plan. People thought I was crazy, that I was nuts because he was the breadwinner. And so when I started my business, I had basically almost everyone tell me that I couldn't do it and I'm going to fail. And so I was in this headspace of I have got to prove these people wrong no matter what. And so that fueled me at the beginning. Sure, that was helpful to kind of like get things done. But after a while, that became very toxic. And then I lost my way a little bit. And then when I realized that my path was like up here, but I was still down here, I had to go through a lot of personal changes in order to let go of my past and let go of the anger and to finally see the path that was in front of me.
We have so much in common because that was how my marriage ended too. Very, very suddenly
Oh,
leaving everything behind except two suitcases and my daughter. And
wow.
so we have a lot in common. And
Wow.
in that rebuilding process, self-trust is the only way through because nobody's going to tell you
100%.
you're going to have to leave everything behind. And nobody dreams about that when they're like a little girl, like,
Right.
gosh, I hope this happens. Nobody
Yeah,
does that.
exactly.
And so learning to trust yourself enough to risk everything
Hmm.
is such a gift, but it comes with the
Yeah.
cost of having to have people around you say, it's not going to happen. You're going to fail. Maybe you're crazy. I don't
Hmm.
know about you, but that's what they said. Things
Oh
like that.
yeah, I was definitely told I was crazy for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
so as you aligned the business with your inner self, what happened?
Opportunities just really started to present themselves. Because one of the things that I struggled with was taking up space because of just the way I was raised and just some other things. It was kind of like if you take up space you're in danger, or if you basically like you don't dream big, you
Mm-hmm.
survive.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of like generational trauma with that. You don't dream big. You got to just do what you need to do to pay the bills. And especially when I was at my rock bottom and I had this big dream to do my business, I just had to do it because I was at my bottom. I had nothing to lose. I had less than $10 in my account, and my daughter and son, at the time, my daughter was 9 and my son was 6. And I had to humbly move back in with my parents. And I had less than $10 in my account. And I wanted to go get bread and milk, and I couldn't do it. So I literally put my hand up to God and I said, all right, failure is not an option. This is the lowest I'm ever going to feel. I got nowhere to go but up. What do I do? And I had this thought of, Devon, what is the biggest, craziest, wildest, most unrealistic dream you can think of in this moment? Because I had nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I decided to start my business helping non-native English speakers with their English. And so that helped me for a while. But the thing is, I thought being in that space was my like the biggest dream that I had. I didn't know one day I would be working with healthcare executives around the country. I didn't know that I'm more of an operational thinker. I know how to deal with systems. I didn't know those things because those types of topics take up space. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't feel comfortable going down that road. I felt like everything was pointing like up here, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna make this business work with non-native English speakers because this is what I want, and I gotta prove everybody wrong. And when it didn't start working, oh my gosh, it caused me years of issues,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I didn't trust myself. But now, thankfully, I'm on the other side of it, and life is so much better when you just kind of let go.
Amen. It's so much better when you just kind of let go and you start to follow your guidance and your trust. And so at the
Yeah,
beginning of our time together today, there was a stressful thing that had happened and we talked about it, we worked through it and all the things and I kept
yeah.
hearing the guides around me say this is an important conversation to have. And human Brenda was like, okay, I know we're talking about healthcare spaces, but that doesn't feel like what we're talking about. But okay, I know we're supposed to be here today. And it's becoming more and more clear why we're supposed to have this conversation today. Because even up till them showing me the slide from 3 weeks ago, I was still like, I know we're talking about healthcare spaces, but we're also not talking about healthcare spaces. Help me. And poof, they gave me the right thing to say to unlock the thing, meaning
Huh.
we have to trust our guidance. That did not come from
Amen.
me, right? Yeah,
That's really cool.
it is cool. It's
That's
really cool.
cool.
And I
Yeah.
haven't always trusted that. That was part of my own journey was to realize it's not in my imagination. It's
Wow.
It might be weird, but it is also very effective. And if I trust the guidance, they never lead me astray. They might take me down some curvy
Wow.
roads, they might take me in some dark alleys, but it's never wrong.
That's really cool. I really appreciate the fact that you embrace it and you embrace it publicly. You embrace it publicly. That is a flex. I think that's so cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It was something I
I
had
think
to
that's
grow
awesome.
into. I was very self-conscious of my gifts for most of my life and was told
Wow.
openly that I would be fired from public education if anybody knew. Don't talk about that stuff. The parents will be scared to have you around their kids. You're committing professional suicide, um,
Yeah.
all the things. And I think that there are a lot of people that want us to conform to their
Oh, yeah.
vision of whatever it is. And so many times that's not good for us.
Oh my goodness. Listen, as a 45-year-old single mom of two kids, but knocking at 46, I'll be 46 on the 20th. And I am so happy being single and free and doing whatever I want when I want. Oh my goodness. The backlash. So it's like I get it because yeah, I am so happy doing what I'm doing right now. And a lot of people really don't like it and they don't understand like you can be single like by choice and be very, very happy.
Amen. Yes. Yes. Being single means that I can go dancing 3 to 4 nights a week and have the best
Yes.
time. And it is literally fuel for me. And
Yeah.
it's so fun. And you're right. There's a lot of people who don't want us to be free, to find our
Nope.
joy, to find our purpose. And I know that there's a lot of listeners that are yearning to trust themselves enough to take the next step, whatever that is for them.
Hmm.
What do you think was part of your process in learning to trust your next step? I mean, obviously, we've got the situation, which, like mine, that was a little bit like trial by fire. Either you do it or you don't. And it felt like
Hmm.
it was really catalytic. Is that the right word? It was a catalyst.
Yeah.
But beyond that, how did you navigate all of those forces of oppression around you saying conform, do it this way?
That's a really good question because that's something that I struggled with for a long time. If it feels right in your gut will never steer you wrong. I feel like I feel like for me, again, I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, anxiety yells and my intuition whispers.
Hmm.
So I know if it's like super loud and I'm really aggressive, that's not my intuition, that's fear. But
Hmm.
if it's quiet and it feels like a whisper in my body, then I know that's the path. Even if the 3D is not 3Ding in the way it needs to.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
We lack
So
evidence, but we're moving forward anyway.
yes, absolutely. So that was something that I had to really rely on, especially when I would have people tell me the exact opposite of what I knew was right for me.
Hmm. And I, having gotten to know you a little bit through your podcast and through this podcast and then online, I know that this is part of your genius, is being
Oh,
able
thank you.
to listen to yourself, to be able to identify things. And I'm sure that's what brought you into wanting to help people communicate better, is because it feels like you can see it. You can see the solutions, you can see the breakdowns. And what a
Yes.
gift.
Yeah. Thank you. And that was one reason why I really struggled sometimes with my business when I was helping non-native English speakers, because they're still part of the conversation. Don't get me wrong, because, communication is communication, but English is no longer the focus. Clarity is now the focus. So anyway, so one of the things that I really struggled with my business is that when I was working with the non-native English speaking doctors, I could see straight through why they were having problems. Guilt, so much shame, feeling like failure for needing something as help with something as basic as English. So it
Hmm.
didn't matter how much my marketing was to help with the guilt and the shame and over needing to overcome, perfectionism. It did not matter. If they weren't ready, they weren't ready. And some people struggled with this for decades, like their entire career. And so it was very frustrating for me because I was like, I can clearly see the problem, but just as a whole, they just this the guilt and the shame was just too much. And that was really hard because I poured my heart, my soul, my everything into wanting to help them, but they just weren't ready to be helped. And so now when I'm working with healthcare executives and I'm talking about, look, these communication breakdowns are not only affecting your bottom line, which I know is important to you, but it's also affecting your retention. It's also affecting customer satisfaction. It's affecting all of these things. It's so much better for me because there's no emotions involved. It's just straight data. And so that's more of my lane. But again, I was so focused on trying to make this one thing work. I shot myself in the foot for a long time because I was trying to make the thing that was not aligned with me work.
Mm. Hmm. And you're saying something really important and resonant. So if we're doing something and we're efforting and we're forcing and we're still not seeing progress,
Oh yeah.
it might be
That was the
evidence.
telltale.
Yeah, go
Yes.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest points when I said you can tell you're out of alignment because it feels like you're pushing a giant rock up a very steep mountain.
Hmm.
If you feel like that in your business or just in life, you are not in alignment.
That's
It's
right.
supposed to feel not effortless because you got to of course put in the work, but
Right.
there should be a level of ease to what you're doing.
Yes. And were there glimmers? Were there people who asked you for different things or asked you questions that made you think, oh, I should be working on the communication for the whole
Oh yeah.
healthcare system? What were those glimmers?
Absolutely. So we started working with global teams because my progression with my business, I worked like individually with doctors, and then we expanded and we started working with global teams. So people from all around the world, different cultures, and English was like the language barrier, but they were native English speakers on these teams. And when I was talking about these specific breakdowns, I would have native English speakers tell me, "Oh, I go through those too. I experience those things too." Or I would have people on LinkedIn go in my DMs and say, listen, I know that you're focusing on non-native English speakers, but as a native English speaker, I get so much from your content. And so when I started noticing the trend, it allowed me to take a step back and realize, okay, I don't think English is really the problem here. And then when I did extensive research on communication breakdowns in healthcare and how it's costing the system billions of dollars each year, I was like, that's it. English is not the issue.
Mm.
Clarity is
Mm.
the issue. And I'm
Hmm.
able to see where it's not clear on an operational level. And that's the reason why I gave it a language, communication debt, because that is how it starts. Those breakdowns over time.
This is so cool. And I'm going to
Oh,
nerd out
thank
for
you.
just a minute because a lot of
Okay.
times people think that when we think about intuition, we think about somebody wearing a turban on their head with the crystal ball, which I mean, I love a crystal ball. Who doesn't? But that is not how intuition comes in for the vast majority of people. There's
Mm-mm.
three main ways that I have mapped that intuition comes in. One is through connecting to the field, meditation, breath work, prayer, that kind of thing. The other's through movement, whether it's walking, dance,
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
interpretive kinds of things. But the third hardly gets any airtime and it's really important. And it's through structure. Structure like
Oh.
forms, data, spreadsheets.
Oh.
And so there are so many intuitive people that are out there doing incredible work. You, for example, and
Oh, thank
you are
you.
tapping into intuition. You're absolutely
Oh.
following guidance. It's so cool to witness.
Thanks. I never really thought about it that way. Because I speak to I'm very active on LinkedIn and I speak to healthcare leaders across the country every single day. And I'm hearing the same things over and over again. And that fuels a lot of my content. And I'm able to, like, for example, my latest article, the one I posted yesterday, it was talking about how the one employee that you rely on is one of the biggest risks for your for your organization. And when you think that, you'd be like, why is the person that I depend on the most the biggest risk? Because a lot of the times because they're so efficient, they're hiding a lot of the operational problems. And also, if
Oh,
that person leaves, you're going to have a big problem on your hands because that person carried the whole load. So if that person leaves, you're going to have a lot of problems that you're going to look and be like, oh, well, where did all these problems happen? Where did all these problems occur? So then I started saying, listen, as healthcare leaders, you really need to start asking these very important questions. Okay, the person that I really depend on the most, if they leave for 2 weeks on vacation, what problems are going to arise? And start there. So I'm saying this just because it's I'm able to make the invisible visible, and I absolutely love it. It is so fun. It's very rewarding too. I
and
got a lot of good feedback on that on my article.
I bet you did because the
Thank you.
way it hit me was at first like, really? That person's the liability. And then as soon as you described it, I was like, oh, I can totally see that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's cool to I like one of the things that I love is when I have like a healthcare leader, especially like the ones in charge, the C-suites. And they will be in my DMs or they'll talk to me and they're like, I'm really thinking in a different way because of you. Or when I read your post, it really started making me think about things in a different way. I never thought about it like that. And I'm like, yes, that's
What
the
a
point.
service. Oh my gosh, that's so incredible. And healthcare in
Thank
US
you.
is so complicated. And so I'm so grateful that you are connecting with the leaders and helping them to survive because we can be angry about the healthcare status in the United States only up to a certain point when we realize the healthcare system is fueled by other humans doing
Absolutely.
very human work.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. And so the thing that makes it hard, especially for communication in healthcare, is that it's not something that's usually measured, right? It's not a procedure, it's not policy, it's not technology, but it influences everything. I always say it's like a house, and you don't really pay attention to the foundation of your house until you start seeing cracks on the wall. But it took a while for those cracks to appear. So you got to really pay attention to the foundation so that way those cracks won't appear on your walls. Because it's not a soft skill, it's infrastructure.
That's right. And we don't want those cracks. We don't need those cracks.
No, absolutely not.
So, for the listener that's either a healthcare leader or in healthcare themselves, what would you want them to know about communication? And then I'm going to ask you the same question for somebody that has nothing to do with healthcare, but is just listening because they love the show or they're an empath or they're an
Okay.
intuitive. What would you say to the healthcare leader or the healthcare professional?
So to the healthcare leaders, listening, if you are having some issues on your operational side of things and you can't really pinpoint what it is, for example, if you're having a high turnover and it's costing you a lot of money and you might think it's the you're not getting the right staff or something like that, it could be the way that things are communicated. So if you can't really pinpoint it, try focusing on some of the communication issues that you may be having across your systems. That might help you solve some of the things that you feel like you can't really solve. And then for the non-healthcare people, like, professionally, um, if it's something with communication, I would say definitely focus on your self-trust, because that's like the basis for everything. If you don't trust yourself, then you're not going to be able to trust another person when they're trying to communicate with you. So, yeah, I'd say focus on that. Well, whatever that looks like for you in regards to honoring that and developing it.
So I'm smiling and laughing because we didn't know this at the time that we booked our conversation, but I have a masterclass coming up called Trust Yourself. It's literally all
Oh,
about
nice.
self-trust. And,
Oh, okay, cool, cool.
I'm just kind of giggling about all the synchronicities that are present in our conversation today. It's
Oh,
amazing.
that's so cool.
How can people connect with you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. My name is Devon Bruce. If you put me in the search bar, I'm usually the first one to come up. But if you are a healthcare leader, you can go to our website, ecainstitute.com. And if you're interested in me in other ways, you can go to my personal website, devonbruce.com. But LinkedIn is the fastest one.
Amazing. And I'll put all those links in the show notes so that people can grab them.
Oh, thank you.
I am so grateful for you and for the work that you're doing and the way you show up
Oh,
in the
thank you.
world. And I'm inspired by you
Oh,
and
thank
feel
you.
a closeness just because our stories are so eerily similar in
Wow.
navigating challenging family dynamics and reinventing ourselves.
Awesome. Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And
It's
likewise, when we first met, we were just both like, ooh, there's something here.
there's something here. We're going to be friends, I think.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
That's so good.
Exactly.
As we close, is there anything you want to leave listeners with?
Yes, I would say that go for it.
Mm,
You only have this one shot.
yeah,
Yes, just do it.
just do it. Stop thinking about it and go do it.
Yes.
You already know.
Yes.
Yes, words to live by. Thank you so much, Devin.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
It was really fun. I absolutely loved this conversation with Devin Bruce and hope that you got a lot out of it as well. I especially appreciated how she explained the importance of being clear and specific. And I know that this can reduce the number of misunderstandings we have in both our professional and our personal lives. I'm going to put all of Devon's links below. You can check them out in the show notes or on the YouTube description. And be sure that you connect with her over on LinkedIn. And as I mentioned in this episode, I am hosting a free masterclass on July 29th called Trust Yourself. And you can register for that by going to brendawinkle.com/next level because trusting yourself really is the next level. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you found value in it, would you please consider sharing it with 3 of your friends and connect with Devin and I on Instagram or LinkedIn, where Devin is even more active. If this really meant something to you, would you please consider sharing it with 3 of your friends and connect with Devin and I over on LinkedIn and let us know what really stuck with you about this conversation. Thank you so much for listening. Bye for now. Until next time.